Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there lived a boy named Elias. He was different from the other children. He had no voice. From birth, Elias had been unable to speak, yet his eyes sparkled with intelligence, kindness, and curiosity about the world around him. Despite his silence, Elias found ways to communicate. He used gestures, drawings, and expressions to share his thoughts. The villagers admired his resilience but often underestimated him because he couldn't use words like everyone else. Some even dismissed him, believing he had little to contribute. One day, 3 powerful men arrived in the village. They were leaders from neighboring towns, wise, wealthy, and respected by many. However, these men carried an invisible flaw. Though they could hear perfectly well, they rarely listened. Their minds were always busy planning, arguing, or thinking ahead, leaving little room for understanding others. The men came seeking advice on how to solve a growing conflict among their people. Each blamed the others for the unrest, and tensions were rising. Hoping to find wisdom, they visited the village elder, a frail old woman known for her insight. When they entered her cottage, the elder greeted them warmly but said nothing. Instead, she pointed toward Elias, who happened to be sitting quietly in his corner, sketching pictures in the dirt with a stick. The men frowned. "What can a mute child teach us?" One of them scoffed. "Surely you jest." But the elder simply smiled. "Sometimes," she replied, "those without voices hold the deepest truths, and those who cannot hear must learn to listen." Reluctantly, the men agreed to stay and observe Elias. Over the next few days, they watched as the boy interacted with the villagers. Though he never spoke, his actions spoke volumes. When 2 farmers argued over shared land, Elias drew a line in the sand, dividing it fairly, showing both sides how compromise could work. When a child fell and scraped her knee, Elias rushed to comfort her with gentle pats and offered her a flower he'd picked earlier. His presence brought calmness wherever he went. At first, the men dismissed what they saw as coincidence or simple acts of goodwill, but slowly, something began to change within them. As they observed Elias's patience, empathy, and ability to understand others without needing words, they realized that their own inability to truly listen had blinded them to solutions right in front of them. On the final day, the elder called the men together. "Have you learned anything from the boy?" she asked. One of the men nodded thoughtfully. "I see now that my refusal to hear others' perspectives has only deepened our divisions. Perhaps if I listened more, I'd understand their fears and hopes." Another added, "Elias showed me that peace doesn't come from power or control. It comes from compassion and understanding." The third man looked at Elias and said softly, "He may not have a voice, but he has taught us what true leadership looks like." With newfound humility, the men returned to their towns. They began listening to their people, not just hearing their words, but truly understanding their struggles and dreams. Slowly, the conflicts eased, replaced by cooperation and mutual respect. As for Elias, life in the village continued as before. He remained silent, yet his influence echoed far beyond the hills. The villagers cherished him even more, knowing that sometimes the most profound lessons come not from loud declarations, but from quiet actions. And so, the boy with no voice became a symbol of unity, reminding everyone that true wisdom lies not in speaking, but in listening, and that the greatest voices are often heard through the heart. Moral of the story: true understanding comes not from hearing words, but from opening your heart to listen deeply. Sometimes, those who seem powerless or silent carry the most meaningful messages.